3,361 words, verified 3 ways, all agreeing. That is 161 above your floor and 39 below your ceiling, so there is breathing room in both directions now. CTAs, 40.3%, 56.0%, 90.6%. Here is the verified copy-paste text. There is a bucket sitting in my shed right now with $3 of corn in it. By Friday evening, that bucket will pull every fish in a 40-acre lake into one spot the size of a kitchen table. I have done it myself for 51 years, and I want to be careful about the word empty, because that is what folks at the boat ramp say when they see me leave with a full stringer 3 days running. They say I emptied the hole. I did not empty anything. You do not empty a lake by hauling fish out of it. You empty it by pulling every fish in it out of the weeds, off the far bank, and stacking them in one place where a child with a cane pole cannot miss. The lake is still full. It is just all in front of me. The bucket has been sitting on that shelf for 6 days. Inside is whole feed corn, well water, and 1 spoonful of sugar. It smells sour now, like buttermilk that has gone over. The lid is resting loose on top, not sealed, because it needs to breathe. And that sour smell, which most people would carry out to the burn pile, is the single most powerful fish attractant I have ever put in the water. It costs $3 a batch, and closer to nothing once you have the first bag of corn. I was raised on a farm where we did not buy what we could make. My grandfather fished the same water I fish, with a cane pole and a crock of soured grain he kept in the spring house, and he fed 6 children off of it through 2 hard decades when there was no money for anything that came in a jar. I have never in my life paid $12 for a tub of stink bait. Not once. Not ever. I am going to show you how to make this. What goes in it. How long it sits. How to read it with your nose. And exactly where to put it in the water, and at what hour. I'm going to show you the one step that most folks skip, which is the step that makes the whole thing work. And then I am going to tell you the part that should bother you a little, which is that none of this is a secret. It is not hidden. It has been written down in farm journals and county extension papers for over 100 years. The tackle industry simply had no reason to remind you. Stay with me. By the end of this, you will be able to make a bait tonight for the price of a soda that outfishes anything on the shelf at the sporting goods store. And you will understand why nobody ever told you. The first thing you have to understand is that you have been taught to fish with your eyes, and fish do not live in a world of eyes. Walk into any tackle shop and look at the wall. Crankbaits in 11 colors. Plastic worms in chartreuse and watermelon and pumpkin seed. Every bit of that wall is built to catch a man standing in an aisle under fluorescent light, because a man will buy the pretty one. Now go put your face 6 inches under a farm pond in July and open your eyes. You cannot see your own hand. That is the world a catfish lives in stained water, in low light, in the hour before dark, when the biggest fish in that lake finally decides to move. Color is very nearly meaningless. A channel catfish does not hunt with its eyes. A channel catfish is, and I am not being cute when I say this, a swimming tongue. Scientists who have counted them put the number of taste buds on a catfish at well over 100,000, and they are not all in its mouth. They are on the barbels, on the head, along the flanks, down to the tail. That fish tastes the water it swims through. It can sit in 11 feet of muddy water, know that something edible is lying 40 yards upstream, and follow that trail to the source the way a hound follows a rabbit. A carp is nearly as good, and a carp is smarter. A carp can pick up certain compounds dissolved in water at concentrations so small I do not have a good way to describe them to you. Parts per billion, a drop in a swimming pool, and she knows it is there. So the question is not what color. The question was never what color. The question is what smell. How much of it? And how long can you keep it drifting through that water? And the answer to that question is not on the wall at the tackle shop. The answer is fermentation. Here is what is actually happening in my bucket. When you cover whole corn in warm water, the wild bacteria and yeast that are already living on that grain wake up and begin to eat. They break the hard starch in the kernel down into simple sugars. They turn those sugars into lactic acid, which is what gives the bucket that sour buttermilk smell. And here is the part that matters. As the grain softens and breaks down, it releases free amino acids into the water. Amino acids are the pieces protein is built from, and to a bottom-feeding fish, they are the loudest possible announcement that something worth eating is decaying nearby. That is the whole trick. You are not making a bait that smells strong. Anybody can make something smell strong. You are making a bait that smells like food that is already broken down and ready to eat, which is exactly what a catfish and a carp have spent several million years learning to hunt. And here is why it beats the jar. A commercial dip bait is sealed and shelf-stable, which means the biological activity in it has been stopped so it does not spoil in a warehouse in August. It smells terrible. Smelling terrible is not the same as smelling alive. My bucket is still working when it goes in the water. It keeps releasing while it sits on the bottom, and it puts out a trail that renews itself for days instead of washing out in 20 minutes. Let me tell you exactly how to make it, and then I will tell you the step that most folks skip. You need 3 things: whole corn, the kind sold as deer corn or feed corn, which runs about $9 for a 40-pound bag at any farm store. That bag will make you a dozen batches, so call it 75 cents a batch. Water. And 1 spoonful of sugar or a splash of molasses to get the fermentation moving. That is the base. That is under $1. Then, if you want, 2 cents, and only 2. Garlic powder and anise oil or plain vanilla extract from the kitchen cabinet. A small container of each will last you 2 seasons. Even counting those, you are at $3 for a batch that will bait a hole for a whole weekend. Take a 5-gallon bucket. Put in about 6 pounds of whole corn, which is roughly a gallon by volume. Cover it with water, 2 inches over the top of the corn, because it is going to swell. Add your spoonful of sugar. Stir it once with a stick. Now put the lid on loose, or lay a scrap of board over the top. Do not seal it. If you seal a fermenting bucket, the gas has nowhere to go, and I have seen a sealed bucket blow its lid across a shed and put corn on the ceiling. Set it somewhere warm and out of the sun. Behind the shed. In the barn. Under the back steps. Now, before I tell you how to know when it is ready, do me one small favor. If you have gotten something out of this so far, tap the like button, and if you have not subscribed, take 3 seconds and do it, and turn the bell on so the next one finds you when it comes out. That is the only thing I will ask you for today. All right, back to the bucket. Now you wait. And this is where you learn to use your nose, because nobody can tell you a number of days that is right for your weather. In July, in real heat, it is ready in 3 days. In cool spring weather, it may take 8 or 9. My grandfather taught me this when I was about 8 years old. He kept his crock in the spring house, and he would take the cloth off, and he would tell me to put my face down close and breathe it in. And he would ask me one question: sweet or wrong? That was the whole test. Ready smells sour and a little sweet underneath. Like buttermilk. Like the bottom of a silo. Like bread dough gone too long. Wrong smells like rot. Like something died. Like a garbage can in August. If it has gone to rot, and it happens if the weather turns hot and you forget it for 2 weeks, pour it out at the back of the property and start again. You are out 75 cents. He never once told me a number of days. He told me to learn the smell, and I have known it for 50 years since. When it is ready, Stir in a heaping spoonful of garlic powder and about 15 drops of anise or vanilla. Stir it. That is your bait. It will keep working in that bucket for a month if you top the water off. Where you put this matters more than most people think. You do not scatter it. Scattering is the mistake. If you throw 2 handfuls across a wide flat, you have made a large area that smells faintly interesting, and the fish will drift through it and keep going. What you want is a small area that smells overwhelming, with nothing around it. A spot the size of a kitchen table. Pick your place first. You want an edge, because fish travel edges the way deer travel fence lines, the lip where a flat drops into deeper water, the outside bend of a creek channel, the downwind bank where the wind has been pushing food for 2 days, 8 to 14 feet for catfish in summer, shallower in spring. If you have a hole where you have caught fish before, use that. Your own experience beats my rule of thumb every time. Mark it so you can find it again. A stump on the bank lined up with a fence post behind it. My grandfather never owned a piece of electronics in his life, and he could put a boat on a spot the size of a wagon wheel from 100 yards out, because he had lined it up on 2 trees and a chimney 40 years before. Now, step 3 is next, and I will tell you plainly that it is the most important thing I am going to say today. Before I get to it, if you are still sitting here with me, hit that like button and make certain you are subscribed with the bell switched on. It costs you 3 seconds, and it is the only reason a fellow talking about a bucket of corn ever gets put in front of anybody. All right. Step 3. Now, here is step 3, and this is the one everybody skips, and it is the one that turns a decent bait into what the fellows at the ramp call emptying the lake. Do not fish it the first night. Go out in the evening, at the same hour you intend to fish, and put 2 coffee cans of soured corn on that spot. Then go home. Do it again the next evening. Same spot, same hour, 2 cans. Go home again. Do it a 3rd evening. On the 4th evening, you go back at that same hour with a rod. What you have done in those 3 days is not feeding. It is teaching. Fish learn a schedule faster than most people believe, and this has been demonstrated over and over in ponds and in laboratories. Feed a population of fish at the same place at the same hour for 3 days running, and by the 4th day, they are already there waiting before the food arrives. The bluegill find it first, within an hour. The carp come the first night. The channel cats come the second night, and they do not leave, because a good catfish will hold a food source and run off smaller fish. And then, on the 3rd evening, the bass show up, and the bass are not there for the corn. The bass are there because there are now 400 bluegill in one place, and a largemouth bass understands a crowd of bluegill perfectly well. That is the part almost nobody does. If you fish it the first night, you will catch fish, and you will think it works fine. If you bait it 3 evenings and fish the 4th, you will not believe what happens. Now for the honest part, because I am not going to sit here and tell you this is magic. And there are 4 things you need to hear. The first is the law. And this is the one that matters most. Baiting and chumming are legal in a great many waters, and illegal in others, and the rules on corn specifically vary from state to state, and sometimes from lake to lake. In some places it is legal on public water. In some places it is legal only on private ponds. In some trout waters it is flatly prohibited. Look it up before you carry a bucket to the water. It takes 4 minutes on your state wildlife agency page. I would rather you check and be certain than take my word and get a citation, and any man who tells you to skip that step does not have your interest at heart. The second is that this does not work on everything. It is devastating on catfish, on carp, and on panfish, and by way of the food chain it is very good on largemouth bass. It does very little for pike, for muskie, for trout, for any fish that hunts by sight and eats other fish. I am not going to pretend otherwise so that this sounds more impressive than it is. The third is a myth I want to put to rest, because you have heard it. You have heard that a squirt of a certain penny wrench oil out of a blue and yellow can is a secret fish attractant. It is not. The company itself has said plainly that it is not a fish attractant. The studies do not support it, and putting a petroleum product into public water is illegal besides. I mention it so you know that when I tell you something works, I have also told you what does not. And the fourth is that this is not a substitute for knowing your water. There is no bait in the world that will save a man fishing dead water in the wrong month at the wrong hour. Now, why has nobody told you this? Think about who makes money when you believe fishing is complicated. There is a sporting goods industry in this country that moves billions of dollars a year, and almost none of it is made on things a man can make in his own shed. There is no margin in a bag of deer corn. There is no patent on a bucket. But a jar of manufactured dip bait carries a good markup, a scent spray carries a better one, and a rod that costs $240 carries the best one of all. I do not believe anybody held a meeting about this. I want to be clear about that, because I have no use for that kind of thinking. It is something quieter than a conspiracy, and to my mind, worse. It is simply that everyone who profits has no reason to bring it up. The magazine does not mention it because the magazine sells pages to the tackle company. The tournament man on the television does not mention it because he is paid by the tackle company. The young fellow at the counter does not mention it because he was taught by a catalog. Nobody has to coordinate anything. They only have to stay quiet. And they have stayed quiet for 60 years. We kept it because we had to. When there is no money for a jar, you learn what a bucket will do. That knowledge did not survive in books. It survived in sheds. There was an old man who fished the far bank of our lake when I was young, and he was there before daylight every morning of his life. And one summer I asked him why he never bought any of the tackle the rest of them were buying. He thought about it a while. Then he said this. He said, "There are two kinds of knowing. There is the kind you rent, and there is the kind you own. The kind you rent comes in a package, and it runs out, and you go and rent it again. The kind you own you got from somebody who cared about you, and you cannot use it up. And you can hand it to a boy and still have all of it." He said, "Everything in that store is rented. What is in my bucket is mine." I have thought about that most of my life since, and I do not think he was only talking about fishing. And if what I have handed you today was worth your evening, do the 3 small things that help. Hit the like button. Subscribe to this channel. Turn the bell on. That is all of it. And it is what puts this in front of the next fellow who has a bag of deer corn sitting in his shed and does not know what he is holding. So here is what I want you to do. Tonight, put 6 pounds of corn in a bucket, cover it with water, put in a spoonful of sugar, set the lid on loose, and put it behind the shed. Check your state regulations this week. Pick your spot and line it up on 2 trees. Bait it 3 evenings at the same hour. Fish it on the 4th. Then come back here and tell me in the comments what state you are in, what water you fished, how many days your bucket took to turn in your weather, and what came in first. I read every one of them. And the reports folks send back are the reason I keep doing this. And come back next week. Because the next one is the thing I have been asked about more than anything else I have ever put out. Next time, I am going to show you the trap my grandfather made from 1 glass jar, a piece of window screen, and a single item out of the pantry that will put more live bait in your bucket in an hour than you can buy for $20. It costs nothing. It has caught bait in this family for 4 generations, and once somebody shows it to you one time, you will never pay for a minnow again. Until then, keep your line wet, keep your eyes open, and remember that the people who fed their families off this water with their hands new things we are only just beginning to remember.